fellow brother sewing and crafting family, Angela Wolf here, and we are at your side virtually. I'm a brand ambassador, and we have another brand ambassador joining us today, Emily Thompson, and she has a fantastic project for you, mashing up two patterns and coming up with an adorable romper. So if you've never been here, say hi. We're live streaming on Brother Sewing and Crafting YouTube and Facebook, both pages, so we can see your comments. And I can see so many of you rolling in. I saw someone thinking they were coming to watch the replay, and you're on the live, so we can see you. And don't forget, you can ask your questions, but most importantly, say hi, say where you're from, because you never know, your neighbor might be sewing next to you. All right, so let's bring Emily, and I'm so excited for this project. Hi, Emily.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here, and hopefully I'm going to be walking away with an awesome project for me today, so a double win, but we will see how that actually turns out. So
are you doing this for you or one of your kids?
So I'm sewing this for me today because who doesn't want to wear a sweater from head to toe in fall weather? So I have a free romper pattern for girls that I think is like maybe size 4 or 5 up to, tween 13, 14, 15-ish age. I'm never quite sure because age and sizing, of course, never go along with each other. And I usually call it by ages just to make it simple. So anyway, so I'm taking sort of the principles that I use to create that pattern and then mashing up 2 adult patterns that I have to create something similar for myself. So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish today.
This is going to be so much fun. I can hardly wait to see this.
Yeah, so we just jumping right in here.
Sure, it looks like everybody's rolling in. They're saying hi. Such a cute idea. Hi, Josie. I see the whole group's rolling in. We've got California, Louisiana. Everyone's in the house today.
Oh, rainy day in Louisiana. It is not. It's like still sunny and quite warm here, but there's hints of fall that I'm feeling these days, which is making me want to sew more fall projects. So,
yeah. When you said something about sweaters, you could be using sweaters for this?
Well, I'm using some sweater fabric. So some sweater-like fabric, not like really open weave, but yeah, some fabric that I would consider sweater-like, and I'm using 2 different. So I'll kind of show you. I've got to start on the project because I wanted to have time to focus on the mashup more than the construction of the individual pieces. So because for a romper, it has to kind of go on in one piece, I thought I would start with a tank with a loose neckline so that I don't have to worry about how am I going to pull this up over my hips. So I have sewn up, this is just my women's basic tank, and it's super simple. It's a free pattern, and it's kind of in a rib knit, a really soft rib knit here. So super stretchy, and you can see the neckline should also be able to be used to go on. So I'm picturing this as a layering piece, like maybe with a cardigan over it, because it does have the tank top. And if this works, then maybe I will think about how I could make this more with like long sleeves or, some more options. Because obviously those rompers exist. I just didn't want to think through all, like, how could I get that on? So here's the tank, and I just cut it the sort of the length that is required on the pattern, because what I'm thinking is, eventually, the romper, it's a high-waisted jogger that I'm matching with, so it should come up to here. So what I did do after I made these 2 pieces is I put them on, and I'm not going to do that for you today, but I did put them on to see, like, when I sew the waist together, is this going to be too long, too short, just right, etc. So I think in its current state, in its current length, this, once I add the waistband in, is going to be good, because I'd rather the top be a little bit looser rather than like pulled super taut. So this is my top, the tank top. And then I used my women's jogger pattern, which is sort of a high-waisted jogger, to create these lovely bottoms. And this is kind of in like a super soft sweater fabric.
Oh, I like that.
And it's pretty thick, which is why I didn't use it for the tank top, because, is that me?
I don't know. You want me to start dancing? I could.
Okay, that was me. I touched something on my computer. So,
It was the joggers, Emily. The joggers were just ready to go.
So I did use this. I didn't use this thicker fabric for the top just because I wasn't sure if it would be like drapey enough. But again, this is kind of the first time I'm making something like this for myself. So I'm a little bit experimenting with some of these fabrics and pieces, but it has pockets. So I'm excited about that because you can always love pockets. And then just a simple, like sort of sweatpants, you know? So I need to add the cuffs to the bottom. So I thought I would do that. And then I'm going to try to put it together. And I'm thinking of using 1-inch elastic just so that, kind of tilt this down a little bit, just so that it maybe can hold a little bit firmer on my waist rather than all the weight being on my shoulders. If I use like a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch elastic, I was wondering if it would just be too thin and sort of pull down too much. So I'm gonna go with the thicker elastic and we'll see if I like that in this waistband, but then I'm hoping that a lot of the weight of the bottom fabric is sort of held up on my waist with this elastic and the top can be loose and flowy. So that's my plan. And we'll see how it goes together. So I've already pre-measured this. As you saw, it, you know, it fit around my waist, but not like super tight, but also give me enough to overlap a little bit when I thread it through the casing that I'm going to create. So I think it's time to get started. So
all right,
let me switch over to the camera pointing at my sewing machines.
Sounds good. And I'm actually going to take away for all of you that want to like find Emily's website. I have it down below. I'm going to take that away. Also, I have Brother Sews on there because they have some new blogs. I'll talk about that at the end, but I'm going to take that off the screen. So if you need that, go ahead, Emily, take it away.
Sounds good. So I did put the links to the 2 patterns that I am using in the comments of the video on the Brother Sews Facebook page. So if you are watching this like in a shared location or on YouTube, the links aren't there, but you can also always go just to my site, lifesewsavory.com, and search tank top or jogger pattern, and you'll find those. But I did put the links directly on the Facebook page just for those of you who are looking for a super easy click through. So the things that I have are my pre-measured 1-inch elastic. I have 2 ankle cuff pieces already cut, and we're going to sew those on in just a moment. And then, like I showed you, I have the tank top in this soft rib knit, which got a little wrinkly since I sewed it last week, but we'll smooth that out. And then the pants or the bottoms in this thicker sort of sweater fleece, and it's sort of ribbed, not as soft on the back, but super soft and fluffy. And I put that on the outside. I might regret that, but I thought that side looked a little bit nicer than the inside. And these are just fabrics I had in my stash because, of course, when I'm experimenting, I like to just kind of use that fabric I already have. And then if it works and I love it, then use, you know, some fabric that I've been hoarding that I wait for something special for. So we might be making a few of these because I'm hoping it will just be like, wearing a sweater and put a cardigan over and we'll be all set. So I'm going to start by sewing the cuffs on the bottom of the pants. And so I have my 2 ankles here, and then I have the ankle cuffs here, and we're going to fold them over so they will be, you know, about a 2-inch cuff. And so I'm going to show you how to sew the cuffs, and I'm sure many of you know this, but I, not super recently, but more recently than I've been sewing for 15 years, discovered a cuff like shortcut. And I'm sure that many of you already know this, and I'm late to the party, but I just wanted to show this for you. For some of you, if you don't know this, instead of sewing the cuff here and then folding it over, you can do that all in one step. So if you didn't know that, I'm going to show you how to do that, and it's super basic. So you first fold over your cuff with the direction of stretch going side to side, and then you fold it down And we're simply going to sew this side with the 4 layers of fabric, and then it unfolds magically, although I've sewed it wrong and it doesn't unfold magically. It unfolds magically to create a cuff. So let me show you how we're going to do that, and then I'll do the other one sort of maybe more the standard way, and we can see the difference. So
I like this way, Emily. So by the way, just real quick, what machines are you on?
oh yeah, so this is the Serger. It's the 3734, and I'm going to be using that for the cuffs and the cuff attachment and for the first step of my waistband, and then I'll be moving over to the sewing machine. And right now I have out the Essence 5200 combo machine, and we'll be sewing the rest of the project on there.
Sounds good.
Yes. So I know. So this, I think I like missed this some way, and some people have been making cuffs like this for years, but I like just probably recently discovered it within the last year. So I get all excited when I, figure out a new technique. And I didn't figure it out, but I saw someone do this and I was, what? Kind of fun. So we just sewed that one little line, and then you turn it right side out and you have a cuff. Awesome, with the fold here and a single line sewn here, and it keeps it all together. So that is super fun and easy. And then we'll just for fun, do the other one the opposite way so that we can see the difference. So again, I folded it with the direction of stretch going side to side, and we're going to sew up that edge. And then we turn it and fold it over to create the cuff this way. So then you're lining up those raw edges, and then you have a cuff like this. So both look great.
That was super helpful to show both of those, because somebody might have been looking at that first one going, what in the world just happened? But because the second way is the way most of us do it. That other way, it keeps them all lined up. It's so easy to do.
It does keep it all lined up. I don't have to then go back and do my second step where I sort of line it up and make sure everything's together. And I think one of the advantages is, especially with tiny cuffs, not so much with this one because it's pretty big, but here I have 2 seams kind of together, and so it is slightly bulkier than this one where it is a single seam along there. So nice. Just one seam bigger than the other, but they look like the same size. So okay, so now we're going to stretch and sew them along the bottom of my pant here. Make sure you can see this. So the cuff has essentially 2 right sides, so there's not really a wrong way to do this, but with one side of the cuff against the right side of the fabric, I'm going to just put a couple of pins in here to hold it, because I do have to stretch the cuff to fit. The bottom of the pants are a little bit bigger. And this is probably the time where you have to think about what fabric you're using. I used a French terry for these pants when I was originally designing this pattern last winter. And the French terry fit fabulous for the pants, but I had made the cuff so small that I couldn't get it over my ankle because the fabric didn't have that much stretch. So think about how you're cutting your cuff. I've made this a little bit wider this time too. It's not going to be super tight on my ankle. But sometimes you have to think about maybe using a different fabric for your cuff than for the rest of your pants, depending on how much stretch your fabric has.
You could always take your cuff in. You can't let it out, but you can take it in.
No, yes, you can always take it in, and I often do because I want that tighter or whatever. So all right, so now we have 3 raw edges of fabric, and we are going to sew those 3. And again, while you're sewing, you have to stretch slightly to make sure that you are stretching. I'm stretching my cuff here to meet the width of the pant, opening at the bottom so that the pants, it will be taking them in just a little bit and sort of gathering that bottom, adding the cuff, and then finishing that bottom. So you're just making sure that you're catching all 3 of those layers as you're sewing, stretching slightly, and then going around. This is a nice, for a cuff, a nice big one. So it's not super tiny, but sometimes with those cuffs, they're tiny and they a little circle to go around. So this one's pretty easy. So that's just a simple, nice finish on the bottom of that pant leg. And then we will do this. Yeah. Do the same on the other one. So here's my other leg and the second cuff. This one is the one that I sewed and then folded myself. So I have to make sure that those layers just stay lined up. And usually I will take the seam on the cuff and put that lined up with the inseam on my pant leg to, it's not really hidden, but keep it from the outer seam would be more visible. So that's where I like to put.
Oh, hey, and that is, she is using a serger, not a cover stitch machine. The cover stitch machine is on the far right of her sewing machine, if I can see over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's using a serger.
Yes. So this is a serger, which sews the fabric together and finishes the raw edges all in one. And when I finish this cuff, I'll kind of show you what the serged edge looks like. And it's great for knit and stretch fabrics because it is a naturally stretchy stitch. So I know a lot of times people talk about using it for woven fabrics because of its ability to finish the edge. So you don't have to worry about fraying or, you know, finishing the seam another way. But I love it because of its stretchiness. And I would say that's probably my favorite feature of the serger is that it's just a naturally stretchy stitch, and clothes that I have made over the years with my serger tend to last a very long time. So here is what the serger seam looks like. And I have black thread on there, so sorry, it's a little bit hard to see, but so you can just see it's actually a double needle. And then it also has loopers, which finish that fabric. So we don't have any loose fabric bits all along there. Plus it's a sturdy stitch because of the two needles, and it's stretchy because of how those 4 threads work together.
We can see that great, and it looks wonderful. I also saw someone asking, are you doing the 3-thread or the 4-thread overlock? And you're using 4 from what
I have all 4 on mine. Yeah.
Okay.
I tend to just leave it like this unless I'm doing a rolled hem, or I recently, you know, cut and re-hemmed with a rolled hem, like a chiffon skirt for a friend's kid who's in a wedding. And she's like, I don't want to pay anyone, just chop it off and add a rolled hem. So I did. I hate doing things like that because it makes me nervous. But so I had redone my threads for that. But generally, I just sew with the 4 threads.
The 4 thread's stronger too.
Yeah, definitely for clothing. So, okay, there we go. So now we have the finished bottom, which are looking great on there. And it's time to join these 2 pieces. So let me tell you what my plan is, and we will see if it works. So I have the waistband here of the pants, and I will tell you when I tried this on for fit. So this pants pattern, I cut it at the normal height, and then when you're sewing the pattern in its original form, you add 1.5 inch wide elastic waistband on it. So it adds 1.5 inches to the top all the way around. And so this is actually not going to be as high-waisted as the joggers because they are going to add height, whereas I'm going to actually be taking away height to create the waistband casing. So it's going to sit a little bit lower on my waist than the original pattern. So when and if I do this again, I would definitely add 1 inch to 1.5 inches to the top of the pattern so that it comes up and sits where I prefer it to sit on my body. But it's still going to work. It's just going to be a little lower waisted. So that's my comment on what I would do differently when I do this again.
So the big question, you know what the big question is, Emily, when it comes to a romper or the pantsuit I have over here, we always joke, do you leave like a slot in the waistband, or how, like, would you have to use the restroom? Do you have to like take the whole thing off?
I know. So rompers are kind of weird for that. I think you do have to take the whole thing off, and there's just no good way around it. Even when I send my daughter to school wearing one, and I feel weird every time because I know she's in like the school bathroom, taking, the whole thing off, but
don't you remember those pajamas we had? Well, maybe I'm aging myself, but they always have a little back opening, like with a little elastic. I'm thinking that we could really come out with something awesome since this is a hot trend right now.
Yes. So, this is a first like prototype, but I have a romper pattern that I purchased, or not a pattern, like an actual romper, and it's like spaghetti straps, and it's like a summer one, and it's super cute. But yeah, I take the whole thing off like every time I need to use the bathroom. So I don't know what the great options are for creating one that's not like that. So I am marking the front and the back of the tank top so that I can match it with the front and the back of my romper here, because these are cut, two different patterns totally. They're not going to fit exactly. So I'm thinking here I'm going to have to stretch, I think, the pants. The tank top is pretty loose fitting. So I'm also trying to make sure I have the right sides of the fabric together. And then once I have those sides cut and pinned, or pinned together, then we're going to match up the side seams, which has seams on both the top and the bottom. So that will sort of keep it squared on my body if I've matched the top or the front and the back and the sides. And then any stretching or gathering that takes place between those points, I won't be too worried about. Both of these are super stretchy fabrics. So easing these to fit is not at all a problem, because they've got lots of give. So these two clips are the top of my pocket. And so I've got two because it's helping to keep all those layers of the pocket lined up. And I'm just going to transfer those now, including the tank top in that seam. And that quarter, that's pretty painless to match up. And actually the back, I don't know if you can see, but it lines up pretty naturally size-wise. So this is going to be, I think, pretty easy to sew together. Not a whole lot of easing having to happen. All right, so now, and you can see it's pretty large. This is definitely going to be gathered in, which is what I want. Something loose, and I can fit in both the size small and the medium of this jogger pattern. I kind of fall like right smack and dab in between the size range. And so I did go with the medium just to make it sort of a looser fit on this one. But depending on the fabric, I've sewn myself both sizes, and it's just, one's a little tighter, one's a little looser. But I did upsize on this one just to make sure that I have room to pull it on, and I wanted a looser look and fit. So now we're going to create an elastic casing on here. But the first thing we're going to do is just sew the two layers together along the raw edges. And I'm going to use my serger for that. And after this, we'll transition over to the sewing machine. The only tricky part is when I get to those top of the pockets, we have a lot of layers of fabric. So I'm going to make sure that I slow down and catch all those layers. 2 layers of pocket, plus the pants, plus the tank top. I did, for my pocket pouch, use the thinner tank top fabric just to try and get away from a little bit of the bulk, because the fabric for the pants is a thicker fabric, and so I didn't want super bulky pockets on my hips. So we'll have to see how that turns out. So we're just sewing around, joining the top and the bottom. And then from there, we will be able to create sort of a casing to thread our elastic through with just a couple more steps. All right, so now I'm back around to the other pocket. So I just make sure I catch that. I'm not taking a really big seam allowance here. I'm really just trimming off a couple of little sort of jagged pieces of the fabric, but I'm really just cutting as narrow as I can, because I want to keep all the height on the pants due to the fact that I didn't really add any height to the pants when I cut this out. So, all right. So now we can take a quick look at how these pieces look together, but it's going to look totally different once we sort of cinch in the waistband a little bit. But I just kind of want to take a quick peek here to see how it's coming together. And of course, make sure that I did put the front to the front and the back to the back, because that would be terrible. So right now this is looking ginormous because when I hold this up, the pants are heavier than the top. You're really pulling it down. So it looks like I'm going to be 7 feet tall.
I'm sorry. You held that up and I was cracking up. It's the forever outfit. I had to
like keep pulling it out. And it's kind of like a gray blob at the moment, but we are going to be taking some of the length off of this in creating the waistband. And then also, again, I'm hoping to take some of that weight off and just let this sort of be a drapey top. So I
so cute.
Am pleased with how it went together there. But so I'm going to now pull this back out so I can access the right here, the waist. And the next step is to sew a line down from the first line that I sewed. So I'm going to be taking in the fabric, and I will put some pins because I want to make sure it's all smooth and not puckered. But we are going to sew down far enough that when we will fold it up and create the casing for our elastic. So that's the next step, is to smooth it out along this edge here. And I'm going to start again by the front and the back. And so I'm pinching 1 inch to 1.5 inches of fabric and then putting a pin so that it keeps both sides of the fabric flat and even. And then also just going to put a couple pins in between those quarters, and then we'll sew around there before we flip it up.
Emily.
What?
Josie said that looks big enough to fit the both of you.
I think it is. If we stretch it. Now, I'm hoping it doesn't look so, I don't really want the stretched out look. That's never a good look on clothes. So.
No, but the funny part is while you were holding that up, I had this on a dress form, and look at how tall this top is. It's the same thing. It ends up so tall, and then it can bloussant, or whatever the word is.
Yes.
Bloussant over the nice pants.
Right. So that's what I'm hoping, is that the top, I didn't really want it to be like a tight tank top look. Especially, I think with a flowing cardigan over it, it will look really cute if I can, keep it on the looser side. And when I tried it on, it definitely was on the looser side. But it's such a thin knit that it just totally got stretched out. So I think my wide elastic waistband is a good idea to try and relieve any of the weight that I can. Okay, so now I've got this pinned, and that's going to keep the fabric flat on hopefully both sides. And I'm going to use the guide on my sewing machine here to help me find where to sew. So let's start on this side seam. And if I keep my needle aligned left and I sew on the 1 inch mark, I want to make sure my casing is big enough, because there's nothing worse than trying to pull elastic through a casing that is a little bit too small. And I totally have done that to myself before. And then I'm stretching it through. So I'm actually going to sew on the edge of the bobbin casing here. I'm going to use that line to kind of help guide me. And the other thing I'm going to do is actually going to set it at a narrow zigzag, because I don't think this seam is going to get a lot of direct pull, because it's going to have the elastic in it, and the elastic will take the brunt of the pulling. But just in case, I don't want to use a straight stitch because this is very stretchy fabric. I also do want to make sure that I'm using a stitch, get the words out, a stitch that has some stretch. Just for when I am pulling this, I don't want to pop that waist seam. So I'm putting a narrow zigzag. You could also use your knit stitch, your traditional knit stitch. I probably prefer usually just to set like a narrow zigzag. And then we're gonna sew all the way around this waist. And I kind of have a mark here on my machine that is my guide, and I'm putting that serge edge on that mark, which is hopefully going to give me this sort of consistent casing. And then I'm sewing in or down from the raw edge, and then I'll show you what that looks like when I get around. But this is going to help us create a nice casing, a sturdy casing to thread that elastic through and then create the waistband on this romper. So last weekend or 2 weekends ago, I sewed a dress for my daughter, and I wasn't going to put any elastic in the waistband. It was just sort of a simple like t-shirt top, and I had made was it a circle skirt or an A-line skirt that I just attached to it. And it looked fine, and I've totally sewed this before for her, but because of the fabric that I used, when we finished and I put it on her, the skirt just pulled and sagged down. The waistband was very ugly. It was stretched out. It looked stretched out. It looked like saggy and baggy, and I don't know what I did differently or if it was because of different fabric. It was also a rib knit. So I decided to do this very same thing. I'm at the pocket now, so I'm trying to keep it lined up. I decided to do this very same thing with that dress waistband to give it some shape, cinch it in a little bit, and make it less saggy. And it was so much different. So thankfully I had some extra length on the bottom. It wasn't going to be too short, because you will lose a couple of inches from, you lose an inch from the top and an inch from the bottom doing this. Now I did use thinner elastic on her dress. I think I used 1/2 inch because she's smaller and we didn't need as much strength from the elastic. So, but it totally changed the dress, made it look so cute. And so you can actually do this on another dress or piece that you didn't intend to if you need to fix a mistake. So it works both ways, for both when you intend to add a waistband and for saggy dress fixing. It is just always so crazy to me because, we buy patterns all the time and they give recommended fabrics, but how using a slightly different fabric can have such a drastic difference on the outcome of the final project. And if you use a fabric that's not recommended on the pattern, you may end up with a totally different look.
Hey, Emily, Marcia wants to know, what stitch length do you use with the narrow zigzag?
So I don't have like a go-to, I will say. I just sort of eyeballed this, but what I did is I set it at a width of 2 and a length of 1, because I do want to make sure that it's still a pretty sturdy stitch here, because it is, this one you're actually going to see on the outside, and I'll show you here in a minute. Okay, so here's my new stitching. I have the serger top, and then I have this stitch that I did. It's a little more than 1 inch down, because what I need to do is fold this up and create a casing for my 1 inch elastic. So it has to be just a little bit bigger than 1 inch. So let me take these pins out, and then I will open this up again, because that new seam that I just sewed is actually the new seam that you're going to see on the waist. Okay, so that what you're seeing right now is my zigzag seam. So I do want to make sure, I'm just going to check the pockets here that I didn't rumple anything up. I
love
make sure that it's a pretty
fabrics. They look great.
They do look great together. I know, I'm really pleased. You just want to make sure it's a tight enough zigzag here that you don't like see stitches, and it looks like this is fine. So again, we have the super long top here. Okay. Coming together though, as I would hope. All right, so the next step is probably the trickiest, because I like to sew this on the outside of the fabric, which means I have to work with these other pieces of fabric to keep everything organized. So I'm going to start on the side seam. And what I'm doing is I'm taking this flat piece that I created and I'm going to flip it up towards the tank top. Okay. And that will create our elastic casing. So there, I'm just going to pin it on the side. We're going to do the same on the center seam. And then keep going around to the other side. And the reason I like to do with this, to sew it on the outside of the fabric, is to make sure that I don't get any wrinkles in the tank top fabric, because now you're going to see this seam that I'm sewing because it's top stitching. So, and then I'm going to place one pin between each of these quarter pins to flatten everything out. And I am working, my fingers are in the neckline here, my tank neckline. Another good reason to have it larger. The one that I sewed for my daughter that has sleeves is sort of like a peasant shirt neckline. So it has elastic and the neckline is quite large and stretchy. I don't know if personally I would want to wear, I don't know if I'd want that on there in exchange for sleeves. But that's one way that you can add a top that you can still get into, is because you have such a stretchy neckline. So, but I need to look in the comments because I have seen some other, you guys have suggested some other options for how to get in and out of this without killing myself or having to be a contortionist.
There's actually a lot of creative comments. Some people are saying snaps, like down in the crotch area.
Yes.
Jumpsuits.
Yes.
Let's see, what was the other one? There was another good one there too.
I did, when I kind of glanced over, I saw that there were a couple. Okay.
Someone said a zipper in the waist, that would work too.
A zipper, yeah, on the side would be, it would kind of take away some of the
Yeah, I don't think that would work.
Easiness of this project, because it is so easy sewing up until this point, but it probably could work. Okay, so through the neckband, through the neck hole, I'm going to slide this onto my machine, and I've taken off the, I don't know, what do you call that? The tray, or what do you call that piece of the machine that I just took off? I don't know. So I have the more narrow.
There's a technical word for it, and I always forget it because I always just call it the tray too. But
I'm not thinking of what it is right now. So I've removed that. So now I have a narrow piece here, and I can easily put my fabric in, and then I'll be able to rotate around in a circular motion. I'm going to be sewing as close as I can to that top edge, which we folded up, but I can really easily feel that here with my finger. And so I'm going to be using that same narrow zigzag because, again, I want to make sure that I have a stretchy stitch. But I'm sewing on the right side of the fabric so that I can try to avoid any puckers with this thin, flowy knit fabric that likes to pucker, because this will be seen now. And I don't have this thicker bottom that I'm sewing with to kind of help keep straighten things out. So I'm starting on the side seam. The thing I need to remember when I come back around is I need to leave an opening to thread my elastic through, and then we'll close that later. So let's sew on that top edge.
So everybody's saying free arm. Well, she's actually sewing on the free arm. That's what you call that free arm that's left. You pull the little tray out to get to the
okay, and then you use the free arm. Yeah, there's some of these technical terms that I probably just need to buckle down and look up and memorize, but I am always too busy sewing and I can't be bothered. So I'm using my fingers here to feel where that top serged edge is of the pants that we tipped up. And then I'm trying to sew right on it and sew around the waistband that way. I've kept the same settings for my zigzag stitch. You are going to see this. I'm using black thread, so you won't see it too much. And I'm hoping that once the elastic sort of gathers up this waistband, that you're not really going to see hardly any of these stitches because it's all going to be in a gathered area that these won't stand out. I don't love seeing zigzag stitching on the outside of my clothing. I think it is a less professional stitch. Now, could I be doing this with my cover stitch? Yes, I could, but I'm choosing to not do that today. Just to, again, try to keep this like a really simple sewing project. And I love that you could sew the whole thing just on your sewing machine. The serger, of course, is a super nice touch for some of the parts, but you absolutely could do this whole look without it. And I just wanted to kind of demonstrate that, but you could sew this top stitching with whatever sort of stitch you thought looked nicer. But again, I'm not thinking this is really going to be seen or stand out at all once we gather up this quite large waist that we're working with in the elastic.
You're really not going to see it because if the top is flowing and going over it anyways, you're not going to see it. Arnell says she cannot wait to see this on.
Okay, I will take a picture after I'm done and I'll post it in the comments. That is gonna, I'm not gonna model this for you today because
no pressure, Emily. No pressure.
Too much to do live. But I will put it on and I will take a picture in my bathroom mirror for you guys and post it.
I think it looks just like a really comfy outfit.
I know. And I have to like find one of my favorite cardigans to go over it. Today it's like 78 and sunny, so it actually would be the perfect day to wear the tank on the bottom but have the like cozy bottoms on. But it's gonna cool off real fast here. At least that's what's predicted. So I think then you just layer this and throw on a cardigan and you have hopefully a really comfy outfit. So I do have some other like cozy sweater knit or other fabrics that I'm eyeing to do this with if this one turns out. Okay, so now we have, I didn't sew all the way around. I've got my opening here. So I'll show you, where's the opening? Oh yeah. So here is, there's the stitch, the seam I just sewed. So you can see that. It's not, a little bit looks like a zigzag, but again, the narrow zigzag is a nice medium between a straight stitch and that. And then I do have my opening right here to thread the, it's like backwards here, thread the elastic. I can't even get it in this thing. Right here is the opening. Okay, so
that was a nice straight seam. You did a great job, Emily. Everybody's like, everyone's looking really close. Somebody said, which was a great idea, if you don't want to use elastic to do a tie waist, that would be perfect for that.
That would be super cute too. Yeah, you could put some like not casings, like what do you, belt loops on the sides, and then thread like a tie through would be really cute too.
Well, that's cute.
Okay, so elastic, and now we have the casing to thread the elastic through, which hopefully it goes in nicely. And I'm gonna thread this along. Try to keep it flat.
Shirley says, how long would this take to sew? Well, she started this at the beginning. So she started with the pants sewn, or even you could even use an old pair of, or a new pair. You could even refashion a pair of joggers if you have that.
Totally.
But she's been sewing this from scratch, so very fast.
So yeah, the joining is not super tedious, and you could either make your own bottoms and start with a pre-made tank, or vice versa to make it, you know, you could start with two pre-made pieces really. But it took me probably an hour of sewing last week to kind of put the tank together, and the joggers. They're both really easy projects, especially if you kind of know how a tank top goes together, because it's the same as all the other tanks. Put on the bands, put on the neckband, sew it up. So if you're kind of familiar with sewing those kinds of pieces, I feel like these go together pretty quickly. And then you can see, yes, that I'm doing the joining here live. So couple hour project, but again, I'm thinking it's one of those that, oh, so as I was doing my feeling, you can see here, this just came out. The zigzag did not quite catch the serger stitch right there. So I have a tiny hole that I will have to go back and fix, but not anything too major. All right, so now that I have this around, the next thing that always is a little bit of a mind game for me is to make sure that this is flat in the casing. And then when I join the two ends, that I join them so they're not twisted.
Lorraine says, thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. You're welcome, Lorraine. We always try to give good tips as we go too.
Yes. Great. Okay, so now we have our elastic. I'm going to overlap it, and I'm going to make my zigzag stitch wider and join the two ends of the elastic here. Okay, so I've attached the elastic, and then I'm going to pull it into the casing. All right, so now what I need to do is go back to a narrow zigzag, and I'm going to sew closed that hole that we left open for threading the elastic. So that was right here. And then I'm going to take this off, and I am going to even out the elastic gathers, really even those out along this waistband.
Oh my gosh, that's really cute.
I think it's going to be hopefully what I wanted. But yeah, I have to even this out. So because I am going to put a couple of, look at how cute that waist looks.
That looks so professional.
So I usually try to like just grab onto the side seams and pull to adjust, but it is not a super tight fit in the casing, but a little bit of a, like, you know, I didn't make a huge casing. So really want to try to even this out. And then I'm going to just keep the same narrow zigzag, and on the side seams, I'm going to just do a little up and down to secure that elastic so that it doesn't slide through the waistband. And then it also hopefully will not turn and twist when I wash this. I have a pair of pajama pants that I made that I feel like I sewed on the sides and the back, but for some reason the front, when I wash it, always flips, and then I feel like I'm fighting with my front elastic. So, and it's just pajama pants. It's not even anything that I'm wearing out. So I probably just need to bring them down and sew them a little more. Okay, so that should keep that in place. And let me turn this over here and see if I can hold this up for you.
All right, we're excited. Everybody's saying this is so cute. I cannot wait to see this.
Oh no, look it. I just sewed part of my tank top into that stitching I just did.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. Just a little clip. We'll go back and fix that. Okay. So again, it is very saggy. It's like down to my
yeah, but if you hold it up though, then it'll be bloussant, like kind of a bloussanty look.
And the tank top is not that long. I don't really know if it's gonna flow over, but it is gonna be more like this, where it's just loose around the waistband. And then I have my pockets. And anyway, I'm super excited about this. I think the waist looks great. I can't even keep this out of the way. But I think the waist looks great. It's gathered nicely, but not like too gathered. And
Right.
I don't know, I'm kind of excited.
It's very, very, very cute.
So there we go. And yeah, different fabric would definitely not be quite so stretchy as I'm holding this. But I do think with the wide elastic, it can't sag down on my hips because it is I made it too tight. So it's going to sit nicely right here and not have anywhere else to go. So I think it'll be just fine.
That's really cute, Emily. You know, we should point something out about that elastic because someone was asking, well, why can't you use narrow elastic? And you know, I have found like when I use the really narrow elastic, you can't hold up all that weight with a little because it will stretch out.
The bottom, this is actually like pretty heavy on the pant fabric. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that I had some good structure. Maybe a 1/2 inch elastic would have worked, and I might try that again in the future, especially if I did use a little bit lighter fabric.
I used 1/2 inch here.
Yeah, right. And I think that's pretty common, but I actually kind of like the look of the 1 inch.
I do too.
If I made sure I left myself enough fabric to do all those folds and create the waistband. I think the 1 inch actually is a nice look on there.
I think it even adds just an extra fashion value to it. Yeah. I mean, because this one you can't see at all. That one actually really looks cute.
Yeah. So
I actually kind of like the one arm going on.
Yeah, I can have a toga look here, and then I can really get into it because there'd be a huge one-sided neckline.
Oh gosh, what a great project! Everybody's saying thank you, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Marsha loves the pockets. I do too. When you lifted that up and stuck your hands in the pockets, like now that's a cute outfit.
I know. Well, it adds a little bit of dimension to this because it is going to kind of look like a sack. I feel like a little bit. Hopefully, the tank neckline and the waistband will add and take away a little bit from the grayness. But it is, you know, it's a lot of gray fabric. But pockets are always cute, and I think are pretty easy to sew and add just like a fun little detail.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Very cute. I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
I tried to do one with a skirt and a top, but I kind of like pants. And I've got a few pairs of those laying around that I don't even have to sew from scratch.
There
I think
you go. Yes. Yes. So I think you just like cut the waistband off and or unpick it if you want to use some of the fabric, depending on how the waistband is constructed. But yeah, I think there's some real possibilities there for using pieces that are already made.
A great refashion opportunity.
Yes.
Janet said, I'd put a skirt on there instead of pants. That's what I did. And I use it for a bathing suit cover up. But I like this. This is going to be a great fall wardrobe.
Yeah. So just those days when I'm around the house. And I mean, I think it'll be a cute little outfit. So I'll take a picture as long as it's not too hideous.
We're dying to see a picture. We won't make you do it now, I promise. No. But everybody's saying so cute. No pressure, right? No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. But I got to show you that it does actually fit and work. So I do have to document the moment.
We're going to document. All right. So for those of you that don't know, Emily's website's right below. So is mine. And so is Brother Sews. Brother Sews has new blogs on there right now for sewing and crafting. And you have my website. You have Emily's, has a ton of patterns on there. And our Instagram is above. Yes. We love to see what you're working on. And if you notice, Brother seems to be sharing a lot of that. So make sure you share. If you make this outfit, be sure to share it. Tag us. I'd love to see this. Very cute. Everybody's saying that is right up my alley, but with sleeves. Oh, sleeves would be cute too.
Yeah. So I think it depends. Just as long as you have the big enough neckline, or I thought about making sort of like a keyhole in the back, you know, where you could unbutton it to get it off. So I just have to think through. And of course, fabric makes a huge difference. This is obviously super stretchy, so not going to be a problem. But yeah, so I have to keep working on it.
Definitely. All the girls are here. We're doing a jacket fitting class today, and I have a feeling that we're going to be adding this to our Friday Fun Sew project. I'm going to be bringing all of their leggings from. Actually, leggings would be cute too. But
it would be cute.
It's a great project. Emily, thank you so much, and Brother. Thank you so much, Doreen. This is not a pattern yet. I kind of did exactly what she did and took these are
mashed a couple things.
Yeah, so this is pants that has no side seam because I wanted to keep that really cool looking fabric. It's
The fabric's great.
70s retro, and I wore it. The only thing is when I was draping it, so just to give you kind of a laugh, Emily.
Yeah.
I can get it on and off okay.
Okay.
But it's a little low. So I went to this little party, and this is like a year pre-COVID party.
Yes.
Put a pin here.
Yes.
Just to keep it together so I wasn't like totally flashing because I couldn't go with the tank top. I was already at the party. But then I had to undo that pin. It was just a mess. So that's when I
use the bathroom, and yes, you've like pinned yourself in.
My solution, I think, and I think this would be a great solution, is to have an opening from here to here. And so when you sit down, you'd be fine. Okay, we'll go into it later. We'll compare it.
It's like too much pajamas.
Too much pajamas, definitely. Everybody's saying, yes, yes, it is cute, but don't drink a lot of water while you're out. I see them on here. They're saying, hello, everyone. So, by the way, if you jumped in late and you want to see this whole tutorial, we are on Brother Sews and Brother Crafting. If you're on Facebook, share this to your page. It's so much easier to find later if you have it on your page. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and you can share that video as well. You can come back and binge watch all you want. Emily, I think you and I have enough videos on them that could keep them busy for weeks.
You'll find something, yes.
Definitely. Well, Emily, thank you so much for this project. Brother, thank you for letting us take over the page.
Yes.
Any last tips, Emily, for this project for somebody's going to jump in?
I don't think so. I might have some after I put it on, but at the moment, I think I've said everything I can think of.
Perfect. All right. Those of you that are watching the shows this week, Emily has a live show. You do a live show tomorrow, Emily?
I am doing a live show tomorrow. Yes.
Okay. At 3:30 Eastern, right?
3:30 Eastern. And I think I'm going to show you how to draft your own like collar for a sweatshirt and then maybe put in like a snap placket because I made one of those last week and it was really cute. So I think I might do that tomorrow. I've sewed enough sweatshirts, so we'll just be adding like the collar and the placket part.
That'll be awesome. So that's on Emily's page.
Yes.
I have a live show tomorrow at 1:30.
Yes.
I have to vote with the ladies. We're going to figure out what we're going to show tomorrow. So
Okay,
that'll be
fun.
And then Thursday at noon, we have Sarah, Brother Educator, coming on, and she always has cool projects. I just love her background, so that'll be fun. So very fun.
Super
Emily,
fun.
great project. I'm going to try this. I cannot wait. You better text me when that photo's
I
up.
will.
All right. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.
Upsize your creativity with the all-new, all-smart Innovus NQ1700E, only from your friends at Brother. Demo one at your Brother dealer today.